Hello, Yariv. Welcome to the Road Trip Show. It's a pleasure to have you join us. I know that you've been working at Google for 16 years and you've seen products built from scratch many times. I'm sure of that. Now you're making waves with generative AI. But the exciting part is you have been in AI long before it was something cool. I believe our listeners are in for a treat today, and I can't wait to dive into your insights. Before getting into the cool stuff, let's start with the basics. Could you tell us about yourself briefly?
Sure, and thank you for having me. Yeah, it's a great pleasure and honor to have this conversation with you. So I started my career as an engineer back in the late 90s during the golden days of the early web, and I spent my first decade of my career in engineering and management positions, mostly in startups. I then moved to Google at around 2007 and switched from engineering to product management. And I've been on product management roles ever since. And at Google, I was fortunate enough to start new initiatives multiple times. So basically, build and grow teams from scratch on projects that then later on became large company efforts. So in 2008, I was amongst the founders of Privacy as an effort within product management and engineering. Before that, it was mostly lawyers involved. In 2009 or 2010 to 2013, I led and grew the emerging markets team, look at India, Southeast Asia, Latin America, kind of in the early days before people realized that this is the next area of growth. And in 2015, I was amongst the founding team of Google Assistant and Google Lens. And ever since, I spent most of the last decade working on this kind of cutting edge AI products and bringing them into production, which was super fun. And 2 years ago, I moved to lead product for conversational AI in Google Cloud. The last year is mostly about this Gen AI, conversational AI. So leading this storm that is taking the world.
Yeah, I know. Like it must be crazy. As we are seeing a huge surge in AI-driven products currently, how do you effectively position and differentiate your product in the market? Maybe you can mention the product you're focused on first, and then we can move on the differentiation and positioning part and your strategy there.
Yeah, sure. And I will also talk generally about, how do you differentiate and how to think about AI in this space. And then I can also narrow down how we're thinking just to make it also more interesting for others. So specifically, I work on AI solutions. So how do we take these foundational models, not just language, generative capabilities, and actually make them useful for businesses and developers? And we have a two-pronged strategy. One is how can we make every developer an AI developer? So basically allow you to use it in a product in production regardless of your AI skills. So that's like, one. And we know it's everyone thinks, oh, you just write a prompt and it works. Actually, it doesn't. And doing it, in production is tough. The other thing is how can we build solutions so that, business units can take something pretty much out of the box and then customize it and make it their own. And over there, we're identifying a bunch of hero solutions, contact center and customer service is a big one, food ordering, in-car assistant, enterprise assistant, there is per industry solutions. So we're looking into that. How do we make it? But if I go and answer your question, how do you choose where to differentiate? I think, like, generally speaking, for people in the space now, right? It's a hot space. I think it's a great question and one that is not easy to answer, especially in this domain that was just disrupted and moving so fast. So many unknowns. And even worse, I think we don't know what we don't know. Things that were hard before are now easy. Things that are hard today might be easy in a few weeks or months. And we don't really know what's truly hard or impossible, right? So for example, not too long ago, LangChain and GPT were extremely popular with kind of the promise for LLM, automated planning and reasoning. It didn't exactly pan out that way. LangChain, yeah, you use it for some simple abstraction, but definitely not the planning. LLMs are amazing and you can create amazing prototypes in a second, but can we really overcome their inherent limitations to build truly useful enterprise grade apps? Are foundational models going to be commoditized? Should we invest in distilled or otherwise smaller models to address the challenges of cost, latency, availability? fine tuning or parameter efficient fine tuning, RLHF, industry specific. These are all solutions that aren't yet proved as the answer. Should we focus on better data, synthetic data? Should we focus on engineering solutions? And like I said, create stickiness via integration of whatever AI, but actually with complex backend systems, right? So I think these are all very hard questions that to understand where can you differentiate. I think then there are a lot of questions to anyone that wants, to build something like, how are you going to monetize it? What are the value you're delivering? Because these are like pretty expensive mechanisms. Is it measurable, right? There is a lot of, hey, I'm going to automate slides creation, email creation, doc creation. How much money does that worth? How much an organization is willing to pay for it? Is it saving current spend or is it a promise for future value? How crowded is the space? What are alternative solutions? Then quality and accuracy, scale, cost. How critical, if you're going on healthcare, these are very important. If you're more about a kind of a duet copilot, maybe you can live with it. I think like you really need to have a deep understanding of the domain here that is moving really, really fast to address and answer all of these and figure out, okay, within that set of very hard questions, where am I differentiating? So going back to us, there are two areas where we clearly differentiate. So one, specifically for Google, AI is clearly in our DNA. And we have been critical contributors even to this recent LLM transformation. The T in Chat GPT is transformer, right? This is the architecture that unblocked everything developed at Google. The P is pre-trained. This is the BERT type of training by deleting certain words. So differentiating on the one-party foundational models. So our own foundational models across quality, latency, and cost curve. So it's not just about the best model, but it's like kind of the best optimal model. It's like a car. What's the best car? Well, that depends. Are you a Formula One driver? Are you trying to cross the Sahara? Are you living in a city with no parking? Right? The answer is different. There is always a trade-off. So definitely, you want a trade-off in terms how good the model, at what latency, at what cost. So I think that's a core differentiator for Google, and we're trying, betting on that. It doesn't end there. So like I said, my team mandate is how to go higher in the value chain and provide Gen AI enterprise apps. Make it easier for developers to develop these apps. And we see a gap in the market in building these enterprise grade applications. Like I said, it's relatively easy to create an exciting prototype, but it's extremely hard to take that and productionizing it, taking all the various considerations, quality in real world scenarios, security, privacy, cost, compliance, debugging, hill climbing. So solving these, because we have built our own solutions at the Google scale, this is where I think we can, really differentiate.
Wow. Like when we talk about AI, it's all, the fancy and cool stuff. And you showed us that there are lots of parameters and behind the scene, there are lots of things that are not really uncool that product managers have to deal with.
Yeah.
So you mentioned the trade-offs. PMs are often at the crossroads of tough decisions, and you make trade-offs while like making any decision every day. So how do you decide what to prioritize next and guide your team in that direction? Do you have a specific methodology or something that you're following while doing that?
Kind of. Methodology is a big
Yeah,
word.
everybody has
Yeah.
kind of. I know,
So
like no one use these frameworks or methodologies,
yeah.
but
So I think the most important thing is to have super clear understanding what you're trying to do and make sure that your team understands that, there's this famous saying that if you don't know where you want to get to, no boat will take you there. So I think like the super important thing is to really have a clear strategy and vision and communicate again and again to the team until when you ask some random person in the corridor what's our strategy and goal, they answer the exact right answer. And that takes a long time. And the way I think about strategy is first answering three key questions. What is the problem that we're trying to solve and why? How are we measuring success? And that is relatively to timeline. Do we care about success in the next 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, 24 months? Because then the strategy changes and the way you would approach it is differently. Three, what are the key differentiators that we're betting on? And before you set these three in stones, there are three questions that you need to ask about them, right? It's always nesting down.
Yeah.
The first thing and the most important thing is really working on a real problem. So you really need to ask yourself, the problem that I'm working real. And when I'm saying real is there are actually, there are always, there are problems what I call in the real world, meaning users want to do something with an opportunity, but at the moment either they can't do it, or it's very hard, or it's very expensive or inefficient. Another type of problem, and I would take, social and communication. These are like, very poster child problems that Google tried to be part of. They were not problems in the market. People had social, solution, whatnot. Google wanted to take a part in it, but it was very hard because, unless you're doing it extremely different, people are actually happy with their social, or there's even too much, or with the com. So I always ask myself, is the problem a real user problem, or is the problem a Google problem that we want to be part of? And it's fine actually, but then you would behave differently in this. Once you said, okay, I understand what's the problem, then another question is the problem worth solving? Right? Is it large and complex enough? There's always the question of alternative cost. Should I be working on something else? Does it play to my strength? Is there a barrier to entry? Because you really should only work on good problems, real problems that exist, ideally big problems and growing problems. Once you figure it out, then you need to ask, okay, the success metric that I just defined, is it relevant to my bigger org? And PMs always exist in a bigger org. If it's in a company, you are part of a bigger, call it product or whatnot. If it's a startup, there is always kind of the CEO and other C functions. And your success metrics must be aligned with the bigger org in the sense that if you are really successful, you are moving the needle on something the org cares. So it means it's like a vector. You're pointing at the same direction of the org, but also your scale, your size matter. And it sounds like kind of simplistic and duh, but more often than not, I actually see PM teams that are even not aware or educated about what their execs care about, or they kind of lost touch with it because they were like executing underwater for too long. So they work against some internally defined goal and success metric that then achieve, they celebrate, but actually doesn't really move the needle, which means no one really cares, which means no one really gives focus and resources that they need. So, they succeeded, but it doesn't really matter. So again, I had three things, that I was trying to answer, the problem that I'm trying to achieve, measuring success and differentiators. Then I kind of had critical thinking about it. Then I said, okay, yes, that's the strategy. Now I go and communicate it to my teams and make sure everyone understands, because I don't want to micromanage my teams. So I want to make sure that they can run on their own, but in the right direction. That's the whole point of strategy, to make sure that everyone can kind of independently, without babysitting, can move in the right direction. So once I'm satisfied, I now kind of focus on the how and make, the next level trade-offs. And here the principle is simple. Do a few big things well rather than many small things. And when I say big, I mean in terms of potential impact, not in terms of complexity, because these don't necessarily always correlate. You can work on something very, very complex and exciting that actually is not necessarily big, or yeah. And of course, when you are choosing which few big things I should work on, you need to factor in complexity, resources, risks, right? There is no point of having kind of audacious plans and exciting mocks and demos if there isn't a clear path to actually delivering them, right? Given the resources and other constraints. So, so you need to choose that, and then, show me how in a series of small achievable steps you actually get to that big thing. Yeah. So this is kind of my methodology: clear strategy, a few big things, really plan, the set, yeah, and hire people that then can make the right decisions. So I don't need to be involved in every decision.
Yeah, that makes total sense. Like managing lots of teams and micromanagement would be disaster for you and you also for the
Yeah.
team. So totally understand that. So about data, it plays a pivotal role in product management. And in your experience, like how do you balance quantitative data with qualitative insights when measuring success?
So, in my opinion, success must be measured only quantitatively, whether that's, dollars, engagement or retention, CSAT, NPS, conversion, value delivered. I think if you cannot measure it clearly quantitatively, I don't think you can measure success, not in a big way. and not in kind of a mainstream product, at least. Maybe there are exceptions, but I would argue there are few and small. I think qualitative insights are critical to get a better understanding of what's not working or missing, understanding in kind of user needs, where we should focus. It guides you in the right direction, but I don't think it's a good indication of significant success. I think it misses kind of the statistical scale to do that. Like early success, yeah, of course, when you're saying, okay, I want to see, but it's a milestone. I don't think it's a kind of end of the road success. But of course, it's critical. I don't believe only by quantitative. Qualitative clearly has its space, but for more product
Mhm.
design and insights, learning about the persona, that kind of doing deep research into becoming an expert on your domain, users and problems and opportunities.
Great, makes sense. Like when you think of startups, it's something always between and quantitative and qualitative because you don't have that much data. Maybe you need to gather much information, but in your case, for company like Google, there is also a quite a high chance that you can make meaningful measuring out of the huge data you have.
Again, I think a startup that claims success should have enough data to show that success. Otherwise, yeah. And again, qualitative, to make decisions and whatnot clearly. But I think success, in my opinion, is quantitative. But yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Great. So you said that like metrics are that like measuring success should be with quantitative data. So metrics, as we know, can sometimes only tell half the story. So can you describe a time when the metrics showed success, but you preferred to you chose to pivot or change direction? What influenced that decision? How was it like?
Yeah. Yeah, hill climbing the wrong metric is like actually a very frequent mistake that organization made. Yes. So for sure, I've seen cases where metrics didn't capture real value. So I think many, many times people are measuring interactions or views that are driven by promotion without meaningful engagement or retention. I've seen so many times. And then basically what you're actually seeing is kind of leaky buckets fueled by very effective and sometimes costly distribution and promotion channels. And I've seen that, many, many times. So you actually think, oh, great, we're getting so much, but yeah, actually, you're kind of buying pointless views and interactions that people don't see value. They somehow fall, they click a link or whatever, try it and never come back and never do anything meaningful. That's the most frequent one. And always, as an exec, you always need to understand when someone shows you something, how was it collected? There are always two questions. Does it represent something valuable and meaningful? And two, was it collected in a statistically rigor manner? Because I've seen many of that, right? They just just miscounted or whatnot. I've also seen cases where we were successful in a subset of the opportunity, but then realized that the overall opportunity is either smaller than we thought or much more fragmented and complex than we originally assumed. Basically, that the juice is not worth the squeeze. So we are kind of very successful on an initial milestone, which might be even significant. But as you do that, although you're successful in that, you are realizing that actually being successful at the same level, and that could be geography or vertical or whatever other stuff, would actually be very hard or doesn't lead to your initial assumptions. So I think that's also, you need to make sure that you don't kind of get in love and, look without the critical thinking of saying, wait, okay, I can do that. Because many times the first country and the first use case, everyone is all in. It's usually in English, so the engineers, everyone understands and debugs in QA. But you cannot do it. You don't have the same level of expertise or scale or resources to do for the entire world or for the next vertical. And you really need to think, hey, can I be successful in a scalable manner? And that's a different way. To succeed in a single customer or single region is different than to succeed in scale. And many times also the scale lied, you overestimated. And as you do it, you become an expert. So these are like two common flaws. I'm sure there are more than that. Yeah. So you need to be very critical always. Like I always say, you need to be your biggest cheerleader and biggest criticizer. If someone is a bigger cheerleader or bigger criticizer of you, you failed.
Great. Another question. So, product teams face lots of challenges, ups and downs. And given this dynamic environment, what strategies do you use to keep your team motivated, especially during challenging times when there might be a failure, a setback? How do you keep them motivated, and what would you recommend people?
So I do three main things. The first one, which I think is the most important, is I hire the right people. And I really hire only super strong people. I think there is a huge difference between a bad PM and an okay PM, and an okay PM and a great PM. So I really try to hire only great PMs. I'm looking for people with a can do attitude and a track record of excellence. I usually, I think that if someone doesn't have a track record of excellence until now, the chances that suddenly they will have not very big. I'm looking for doers, because I think there is a lot of strong people out there who understand the theory of product management and can generate, and craft amazing vision and PRDs. But I think at the end, PM is a very hands-on work in the real world too. Like, we need people who know how to translate it to results in the real world, in the face of real world challenges, when you lack resources, ever-changing reality, dealing with tough personalities. All right, so really people that has this perseverance and ability to deal. The second thing that I do, it's not just enough to bring great people. You need to make sure that there is cultural fit between the people that you bring and your team and product, because people have preferences and strengths that depend on the organization and setup they are in. Some thrive in well-structured and fairly stable environments, and they could be very, very strong and could drive very complex problems to success. But if you put them in a kind of a chaotic environment, they stress out and underperform, while others actually strive in chaos and unknown, bringing leadership and clarity. But if you put them in a more structured place, they feel suffocated when it gets more structured and organized. So, like, really to make sure that you have, not just the best people, with, I think, general baseline, but also the right people to the situation that they can flourish. That's very critical, because what is challenging to one person is actually flourishing and great for another person. Like, I love chaos. I always, I see chaos in my work, and people, oh, you're so good. Yeah, but like, put me in, in some other stuff I completely suck. And I think the third point is, okay, you have strong people, the right people. You really need to invest in people, and you really need to spend significant time in people. For some reason, we spend so much resources kind of in projects, but there is stuff in our life, whether it's the people we manage or actually, our friends and family, that we think that can organically grow. And no, you need to actually put effort and time. You need to make sure that they understand what they're trying to do and why. You need to give them time and space to be part of the strategy defining process, not just to execute. Like I said, then, once they get that, they will actually be much more passionate, and, they will be accountable for their successes and failures. You need to create a psychologically safe place where people can actually ask questions, raise problems, point at issues, so these don't kind of blow up, which again, some of the problems you say is because people don't talk about issues until they are very big, so you don't solve it in time. And that's a lot about psychological safety. You need to make sure that they're organizationally set for success with the right missions and resources, and invest in their personal growth. And I think if you do that continuously and consistently, which, like I said, requires attention and time, it's worth it. So I really think that people are the most important ingredient. And when you have a person that is set for success, is inherently strong, knows that they're accountable and owning their destiny, and know they have support, they can actually sustain pretty big challenges and actually many times overcome them in very surprising ways. So I really think it's all about bring the right people and invest in them the same way you're investing in the project.
So hire that people you don't need to motivate. That's the key, maybe.
Yeah, but still, invest. Yeah, right. Like,
Yeah, of
just
course.
like put yourself, always treat others like you would like to be treated. That's usually a good, simple rule of thumb in life.
Another question. Consistency with vision is paramount in product strategy. How do you ensure that your product road mapping efforts versus planned product work align with product and company vision?
So this is a little bit. I think I touched it, right. Like, I think it's critical, and if you don't do it, you are like irrelevant, and eventually you're trained into a wall of those resources. And I think it's very easy and mostly a mindset change. That the moment you realize it, like there are three clear steps to do that. One, understand that it's critical to align your success metrics and strategy with the broader org. This is where most people actually fail. They think, oh, I'm going to be on my own thing, I'm going to be like a startup in a large company. Yeah, if you do like brilliantly successful and completely outside, yeah, but you need to be right. So just understanding like that this is critical and something you need to worry already puts you. Once you understand that, the second step is educate yourself about what your CEO and executive level cares about, because this is, I think, the biggest problem after the first one is people just don't know. People don't know because for many, and actually if you go and get, I don't know, meet your VP, SVP, CEO, whatever it is, and just ask them, what do you care about? What are you worried about? What is success for you? How do you think about my area? Then you are an expert and you can actually make the mapping from the other direction. But just ask and really understand what they care, then it's much easier to come and say, okay, so this is what I need to contribute to it. And then, okay, once you understand the important and you educated yourself, now you need to ensure the alignment, like I said, both in the direction and scale, right? Make sure that they care about the targets and that you're moving it in a way that kind of moving the needle in a meaningful, in a way always, because they're giving you resources. You always need to ask, oh, is the amount that I'm contributing a count, relative to the resources make sense? Is that a good one? So I think like again, just like make these three steps, like it's usually this is the easiest part, but again, like everything else, usually it's a mindset and awareness that I'm part of a bigger thing, and maybe it's a little bit like uncomfortable for egos. I don't know why people don't do it more. Yeah.
I get it. Like if you set the like from the start, if you know the why and how, like you as you previously answered the
Yeah.
question, like if it's set right, like set with the right mindset, the other things are aligning. They should be already aligned with the overall vision and strategy.
But you need to also realize that the same way stuff changes on your levels, stuff changes up. Like check every quarter, because that's again, like I said, many times you go underwater and execute, and then you figure out that the submarine is so far from the bigger mothership. So like checking, hey, this is what I'm doing, does that still make sense? And if not, align yourself.
So, the integration between product creation and its market strategy is crucial. And I know that you are also part of the, of course, GTM strategy, go to market, etc. So, how involved are you with creating a GTM strategy and collaborating with product marketing and growth teams?
Yeah. So very involved, right? Like so our goal is not just to build great products, but rather to build great products that are successful. And for example, in Google Cloud, that means successful business. That is measured by business goals. That is, of course, revenue and margins. So you need to have a very clear strategy on how you take the product to market at scale and achieve your goals. And often this goes beyond just selling it and selling it at margins, but actually, ensuring sustained consumption and growth. And in our world, some of that, what does it mean, right? So for example, when I design a product, I need to cater to adoption requirements. I need to think about enterprise readiness, regulatory and other compliance, time to value, cost, not just of the product, but actually of integration, latency, features that are required, security and privacy, language and region availability, friction. Then I need to think about sales and partners enablement and incentives. Like it needs to be really, because if a salesperson, sales are being incentivized by quotas, right? So they can either sell my product or some other product. If the other product is easier to sell and give them higher quota, they will do that. So I really need to think to be in the legs of the salesperson. That salesperson can be, direct sales in Google or some partner, right? And also partners are doing enablement. And again, partners, are not supporting only my product. So I need again to really think, okay, what are all the steps that actually required to make my product successful, and how can I cut friction and problems and make it super easy to actually to do that? I need to think about marketing, I need to think about pricing, how, and pricing is not just, hey, the lowest price, but how do I create predictable pricing, What do I want to incentivize by pricing? Do I want to incentivize consumption? Do I want to incentivize bigger solutions? Do I want to incentivize stickiness? Right? So in order to be sustainably successful, you need to bake all of that and then think, okay, so what do I do in the product? I'll give you just an example, right? We had a great product, but it required kind of custom training of models, which meant 6 to 9 months of collecting data and finding the talent to collect and do that and custom train the model. And then we said, okay, can we replace that with the baseline models that go out of the box with 90%, and then afterwards you can actually do it, but you're already getting value and it's much cheaper, and or many times you're coming and saying, oh, can I hide complexity? Because, okay, in certain areas, everyone is dependent on some service integrator to do integration. But if you need a zero expertise as opposed to AI expertise, the amount of talent and the cost of talent is like, 10x down in a way. Let's simplify. So really, they are completely interchangeable, and you need to understand not how just your product is used, but also how is your product sold and deployed, and understand the sales cycle and everything, and what makes it attractive and differentiated. Yeah, so we are like deeply into that, and our targets are actually not just launch, but actually dollar targets. Yeah.
Thank you for the answer. And another question is about being making yourself skilled as a successful product manager in today's landscape. But I think that you already mentioned what type of product managers you prefer hiring. Other than that, like how people can help themselves build these skills that you mentioned, because it's hard, people becoming resilient and becoming a doer. Like these are really hard soft skills that you
Yeah.
mentioned. So what would you recommend to people that are on the road to become a successful product manager?
Yeah. So you said it, yeah. Like I completely agree that actually the hard skills, because it's changing so fast, not that
Yeah.
important. I think, yeah, you said it. I think it's resilience. I think it's the ability to learn quickly and adapt in a fast-moving world. I
Mhm.
think ability to make quick decisions and execute effectively even when things are unknown. Yeah, most failures that I see are a result of lack of resilience and ability to handle changes, people burning out when things become challenging. And if you want to be successful in a big way, it's going to be challenging. How do you develop these? I think first, like, in everything, it's awareness. It's awareness, like, hey, if I want to be successful and senior in this changing world, I need to develop that resilience. I strongly believe it's like a little, there is very mental resilience is very much like physical resilience to be born, but anyone can train on developing it. It's something that you need to train yourself into it. And like everything else, find people that are doing it well and ask them, how did you do it? Right, kind of a personal coach that you do for physical, to become, and you're asking for a program. What can I do to develop that resilience? And and I strongly believe also that our initial reaction to anything lasts a few seconds. Oh, this is frustrating. Oh, I cannot deal with that. After a few seconds, it's your choice. So I think, like, again, that mindset of, okay, everything is my choice. I choose whether I feel, oh, I cannot solve it, it's too much, I'm frustrated, it's unfair, all the reasons that get, or I'm choosing to deal with it and be successful. And of course, saying, hey, I'm not set for success, I'm going to leave and find something else is a fair choice. But many times there is others. So again, I think there is a big mindset and awareness kind of thing. The other thing is, again, like I said, the ability to learn fast and adapt is, again, first, is this new thing in the world. There is these LLMs or whatnot. I better educate. So setting time on the side to understand these big things, because I think the problem is that a lot of people just don't take the time to learn. They keep doing the same thing until they become a little bit irrelevant. And we always say, you're not going to be replaced by AI, but someone that uses AI, understands AI. And you see it when you go to a doctor, right? When you're looking to a good doctor, what you really mean is someone that is up on the latest papers and the most latest techniques. We realize it when we're looking to get somebody else's services. We're looking someone that isn't back 20, 30 years when they were in university, but they kept up. So I think you need to actually, set time the same way that you develop your people, develop yourself, and also be super critical to understand where am I failing in situations that are kind of the next level situations? Am I, not communicating clearly? Am I not enough accountable and living in my own world? Am I not educated about what my manager wants? I'd like kind of look critically at what you're doing and compare yourself to good people on the level you want to get to. I think like a very clear thing is what got you here wouldn't get you to the next level. Successful junior PM will not get you to be a successful senior PM. What got you to be a successful senior PM will not get you to be a junior PM lead, and what got you to be actually, kind of a PM exec. It's like totally different skills and different behaviors, and sometimes completely opposite. So really choosing more than one, because there is more than one way to do things, choosing more than one role models and looking at their behaviors and trying to understand and looking at your own, I think so. So I don't think there's like kind of magic, but I think it is the soft skills. And I think like, think of soft skills like kind of physical skills of I need to work on them and really look in the mirror, as painful as it is sometimes, and identify kind of the muscles that I need to develop and consult with people that seem good, what can I do? And really look for these real-time opportunities when you are making the mistakes. If someone tells you are too aggressive or too tactical, find these points that you are aggressive or tactical and ask yourself, why did I do it? Right? Really, like kind of the basic why. Was I unprepared? Was I defensive? Did I not understand? Like, how could I have done it different? And, so I think this is like kind of the personal growth. And yeah, I think like, finding great mentors and coaches is key. It's very hard to do it alone. I'm very happy that experience is just very hard to teach. That what keeps my salary.
So back to cool stuff with AI. There are lots of tools right now to make product management easier with AI. But it's really tricky because strategy, making a decision right now, it's not really, maybe it's not used very well, I don't know. But what do you think about how do you foresee about the future of AI in product management? So about especially in the strategy part rather than, summarizing and writing PRDs, etc.
So disclaimer, I don't believe in crystal balls, and I don't think anyone last
Yeah.
October could even predict the beginning of this year, not to mention, kind of this October. So take everything with a grain of salt. I do think that actually as a first step, Gen AI and all of that will make PMs better and more effective. And kind of, the areas that you said, don't talk about. But I do think that the way to think of current AI is like you have an army of apprentices at your disposal. And I think like AI is getting, really good in collecting and crunching structured and unstructured data. To your point, not just summarizing it, but giving insight. And it could be, from logs, user reviews, quantitative research, generated content and input. So I think like the first thing is really how do you use that smartly to give yourself a superpowers, right? And just like you can generate better data faster. So really, I think at the first stage and the foreseen in the next PMs who will use AI to do this kind of simpler things will be more efficient and more productive and be more communicative. If you want to go for vision and innovation, and I will start speculating a little bit, I do think that very soon AI will get better in generating prototypes and apps, almost complete apps, based on high level descriptions. And it might be able to suggest, kind of changes and variations, whether with AI or evolutionary methods and whatnot, and even automate A/B experiments and automation based on that. So basically, you could kind of an AI would be given a metric to optimize for. And again, all the metrics that we spoke about are very easy, measurable, and hill climbing, right? Like revenue, clicks, like all of these you can actually measure. And then if you're telling it, change the product, create 100 A/B, and you can give it some guidance or you can give it some assumptions, right? It doesn't completely random. I actually think that they can do it. It's the same way that they're winning in chess and go without the semantically understanding the game. But if you can find a way to do it at scale, at cost, they can actually become superhuman very quickly. What will be the role of the PM at that point? I don't know. I think we need to live and see. What can you do now learn and adapt and be with it, because I'm pretty sure the solution, because I strongly believe that this is not the end of technology or human creativity, but it is a paradigm shift. They made the invention of calculators, there wasn't the end of math and whatnot. So I think, it's a very powerful tool, and it might replace us to some extent. But I think, engage with it as early as possible, because then it's simpler to understand its strengths, weaknesses, and adapt. But yeah.
So we can take a breath right now. Uh, so, um, there are lots of voices often lead to each better product. So how do you ensure that diverse perspectives and experiences are considered during the product management process?
This time I have, I think, 4 points, not three. So I think the first one, again, hire diverse people. And diversity is gender, it's life experience and background, work experiences, people with disabilities, different personalities. Don't create copies of you, just by bringing these people that came with different backgrounds. One, looking at the same problem, they will see different aspects of the problem, and seeking for a solution, they will see different aspects of solution, and they are aware of secondary problems that you are not even aware, being on different minority and other groups. Second point that, again, contributes to other stuff, and I touch, create a psychologically safe space where people can be themselves, can be diverse, where they can ask, where you can actually have a diverse conversation and learn from each other. Because many times we bring all the diverse people, but then everyone is so afraid, because they know, everyone is just trying to guess what the most important person in the room is thinking. So you are losing all that diversity, and creating it is not easy. Then, you get input from outside your team as soon as possible, because it doesn't matter, how many people, diverse, whatever you put in your team, very quickly it becomes an echo chamber. Right? So you need people from the outside world, because, again, PMs, all, as different as PM can be, they're still a very similar, right? So you want to make sure that you're bringing more people that are completely different, and, again, seek diverse perspectives. Look for minority groups and amplify them. Seek for that richness, because otherwise, if you're doing, UXR, by definition, you'll get, kind of the population spread, and you don't want to do that, actually. The last thing is, which I think is important for a lot of things, is call out positive and negative examples, so people know what you reward and what you shouldn't be, and good players and bad players actually know that. I think that's critical for a lot of things, but also for diversity. Yeah, I think we don't do that. We've seen the power of RL, so let's bring RL into the real world. Yeah.
So the last question. So you've been on many platforms discussing the, nuances of innovation. I saw it was, I guess, the top conference, one of the top conferences on product school about innovation. So what are some of the foundational elements that, in your opinion, drive true innovation in tech, and especially maybe in AI?
So I think specifically in AI, I think the opportunity is driving the innovation. This AI transformation that we're experiencing is very similar to the previous two transformations, the digital transformation in the late 90s that kind of made Google, Amazon, and others, and the mobile transformation in the late 2000s that made iOS, Facebook, and basically everything we do today, right? And I think this one is the same, but more foundational and larger. And I think that people and companies are realizing that there is an opportunity here to create the next multi-trillion dollar companies, and that consumers and businesses' way of doing things is going to completely transform. And anyone that is ignoring it will have the same fate of companies that chose to ignore the web and mobile. I think people that are looking deeply are realizing that technology is real. Yeah, it's moving and adapting, whatnot, but it's real and the impact is real. And of course, we're at a very early stage, which is cool, and we still don't know a lot of things, like I said. There are many wrong assumptions and attempts, and there is clearly hype, by the way, and a bubble and whatever, right? And things will evolve differently than they started. But there is also a lot of stakes here, right? Kind of the world is going to change, like trillions and trillions of dollars, right? There is tons of resources and willingness to move fast, and that's all innovators need. Innovators need an opportunity and resources. These are people that are constantly coming out with ideas, but ideas are limited by the opportunities and resources. And here we have this, like, again, once in a millennium or even more opportunity and resources. So like this is like, whoa, this is like so exciting for innovators. Yeah.
I could have asked millions of questions to you. Like it was really pleasure, but I need to digest your answers first. There were lots of tons of insight, and I'm sure product folks listening to this will find something in each answer. And thank you for joining us. I really enjoyed it. And thank you everyone for listening. We have amazing guests lined up for the upcoming episodes, but Yariv put the bar so high, so we're gonna see how other episodes will come out. So see you all next week. Bye.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I had a pleasure.